Hi, my name is Joe Fogg. I'm the CEO and founder of onDiem. What I want to tell you about onDiem first is what the name stands for. So onDiem is the combination of three words: on-demand, per diem, because in healthcare a temp shift is a per diem, and most importantly, carpe diem. It's an opportunity for a provider to earn $300 and $500 or $1,000 in a career that they love. So what we've built is a platform to facilitate a compliant solution to allow providers and practices to work together and take care of their patients. But within this condensed 9 minutes, I'm going to actually talk about two things. And so for those of you that know me, I'm typically just really, really positive, and I talk about the positive things that our product does. But in the current state right now of the labor shortages, I feel like I have to share one thing with all of you right now, because there's so many people that are desperate right now that they'll do certain things that they really put their practice at risk. So I'm going to start with that first, and then I'm going to end with the positive things that we do. So I'm going to ask 3 questions, and I want you to really think about these questions. And if you think that any of this answer is a yes, or if you know it's a yes, you're doing some things that are putting your practice at a lot of risk. And the first question is, have you ever heard of a scenario where a patient sues the practice, or they sue the doctor? Think about it again, where a patient is going to sue the practice. I've heard of it happens all the time. Okay, the second part of the second question of that is, have you ever heard where an insurance company is going to try to get out of $1 million claim, or they're going to try to find some sort of loophole or some sort of technicality where they're not going to have to pay that big settlement? So think about that again. Now, the third question is this: have you ever brought a temp in your office, and have you ever paid them as an independent contractor? So think about that. I know all these things happen all the time. I know people are desperate to bring somebody in to take care of their patients. But if you do that, you're putting your practice on the line to the tune of almost $1 million. And let me explain what happens next. As you know, if you've ever had or heard of a labor audit happening from the state, the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to pick a date and time. No different than the attorney that's working for the malpractice or the insurance company when a situation like this arises. They're going to see which providers provided patient care to that patient on that given day. Well, what they're going to do is they're going to look to find and say, okay, well, this particular patient was served by these providers, and this provider, they weren't your employee. So because they're not your employee, they're not going to be covered under some of your malpractice. So what that means is you're exposed. The provider's exposed, and now you're exposed. So in that, all of you know that every single state has a state dental practice act. In that state dental practice act, it specifically says one of two things: that any hygienist dental assistant that's working providing care has to work under direction of control or direct supervision. When they become independent, they're not doing that. Now there's that technicality and that loophole. So one of the benefits of the onDiem product, that it wasn't initially designed to mitigate that risk, it actually helps to solve that problem. onDiem is a national platform where everybody that signs up on the professional side, is free for them to sign up. And when they sign up, we onboard them to be our employees. We're a W-2 employer providing workers' comp and malpractice, all of this in every single state. Any mid-sized to large DSO, they will never let anybody work in their office as an independent contractor because they have strong legal counsel. And they know that if that situation arises, they'll be exposed. So they never do that. But right now, there's a lot of private practices that are really navigating, facilitating the labor shortages and the demands that have been created. And they're really playing a risky game on trying to do that. Okay, so now that is the thing that I wanted you to take away, because that is a substantial risk where you're putting your practice at risk. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the positive stuff. So when we built onDiem, and I talked about it's on-demand, it's per diem, and it's carpe diem. What we built was the ability to allow providers, especially right now in a time of COVID and shutdowns and all that kind of stuff, where some of that labor force kind of shifted out of it. But it's in a space that's so passionate for them and a career that they love, and they maybe want to get back into that. Well, onDiem is doing that so much every day, more than ever before across the country, because now they can kind of get their feet back into it. They can go try out practices, and it's all compliant. One of the unique things that we've done, and we just felt it was the right thing to do, is we actually give our pros, our temps that work through our platform, we give them PTO. They get 1 hour of PTO for every 3 shifts. And in that, it's not just a set fixed hourly rate. They work at one practice at $60 an hour and another practice the next day at 50 and another one at 55. It's the weighted average of that. So we built this experience, unless if you ever use Venmo or if you use Cash App, they just hit a button and we send them a paycheck of a PTO and it accrues and they stack that up. The other thing that we do is, if you think about it, is if you're a practice and you want to bring somebody in to facilitate that work, sometimes if you're going through a job board or if you're going to go through a matching platform or any of that other kind of stuff, you still have to bring them in and onboard them as an employee. So we get economies of scale, we get great leverage. Sometimes our labor burden as a national platform is less than what you have for your own employee that we're backfilling for that day. Because if you have to bring them in, like your own employee that's out that day or that open job rec that you have, you gotta pay federal unemployment, you gotta pay state unemployment, you gotta pay Social Security, Medicare, workers' comp, and malpractice on your own staff. That's called a labor burden COG. We have the same thing. So when that person signs up to onDiem, it's free for them to sign up. They go match, they connect, they work at your practice. We take care of all the payroll. We payroll them, we pay the invoice, we invoice you, we pay the temp, they earn PTO. We handle all of that. It takes all of that burden off of you, so you don't have to add them to your payroll. You don't worry about having to cut them a check that same time. And then on the temp side, you're not having to try to chase down the check. Now, I only got a few minutes left, but I want to share with you a couple of things that are going to happen. In the next 3 weeks, we have some amazing product launches. One of these product launches is called the onDiem Digital ID, and it's awesome. One of the things we built into that is, as you can imagine, we're an employer across every single state. In that, there's certain states that are popping up right now with COVID mandates. In this COVID mandate, what you have to navigate and manage as an employer is you have to manage, do they have a vaccine? How do you manage and store that vaccine? If they don't have a vaccine and they elected to do an exemption, whether it's a medical exemption or it's a religious exemption, how do you get copies of that? How do you store that? And how do you approve that? Third, if they have that exemption, does that state require then for them to do weekly testing? And how do you manage that? So we've added all of that functionality to our platform. So now not only do we manage all of our own temps for those same abilities, so they can choose what they want to do and work the way that they want to work and navigating however they feel about being COVID compliant, we're going to offer this as a solution to practices. So practices can get this same experience that we use to manage our own employees to manage their own employees. So if you have employees and you're in a state and you're wondering how are you going to manage this, what I'd love for you to do is go to onDiem's Facebook page. And if you just sign up or follow our Facebook page, you're going to know when we're going to launch this product. And it's launching soon in a couple weeks. And every single day, every state is kind of navigating whether they're going to be in a COVID compliance or they're not. There's about 7 states that are fast managing it right now, and there's more we hear every single day, and we're going to try to keep that updated for that experience. The last thing that I would share with you is this. We have so many practices that just aren't using us for temping, for backfilling somebody who's out. They have so many patients that they're trying to get back in the door. They have extra operatories, and they want to be able to take care of more patients. So they're using onDiem as a way to supplement their own labor force. They're seeing more patients, and as everybody knows, it's in the hygiene appointment that's the tip of the spear, that like 95% of your total revenue from your practice that comes out of that chair. So they're using and leveraging onDiem's contingent labor force for the opportunity to be able to see more patients and drive more revenue. There's one more announcement that I'm just going to drop. There's going to be another feature we're launching here in about 60 days. So if you're a hygienist or you're a dental assistant or you're a front office out there, and you're interested in really kind of taking some opportunities to the next level, I also want you to follow our Facebook page or our Instagram page too, because we're going to have something that's pretty awesome that we're going to be bringing to you as well for a phenomenal opportunity. Thank you for the time.